I don't know why. And it's not always relational, but there's always a challenge that's going to come there. And if you're not prepared for that,
Yeah.
you're going to see that come and you go, oof, I think this is my chance to get out.
Yeah.
And you got to bounce. At the very least, you're going to leave and go to another church and start over.
Hey friends, Jeff Wallace here, and welcome to another episode of Chasing Elephants. And I'm excited to continue my conversation with some of our friends from Lifeway students, their authors of some incredible resources that we have. And this project, friends, I just have to tell you, I'm really excited about this conversation and the project that we're going to be talking about as a fellow youth pastor who stayed at one place for over 2 decades. This particular conversation really hits home for me, and so we have with us today a dear friend, Jody Livingston, who is spent over 25 years. I love that, equipping leaders and building ministries that last, and he has spent his entire life serving as a youth pastor, and he's the host of the Longer Haul and Youth Ministry podcast, and he's a creator of resources that really are serving the next generation. But Jody is also the author of an incredible new book called Staying Power.
Hey, listen, man, when you're bald, sometimes you need a little,
Staying Powers. Let me make sure I say that right. Don't go looking for Staying Power. That's not his book. But Staying Power is essentials for longevity in youth ministry. And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, leaders from across the country, please welcome my friend Jody here, man. Jody, thank you so much, brother, for just being with us today, man.
Hey, thank you. I just want to say folks listening won't know this, but behind you is just an amazing LED graphic here.
Yeah,
logo.
yes. That is fun.
I feel pretty intimidated right now.
No, please don't. You know what? That is because we do both the video version plus the online version. So it's just Britt and I will have, we want to let people know this is Chasing Elephants. It's as official as we can get.
It's very 1990s Sports Center. Like, I love it, dude.
Oh man, listen, now that, that makes my day, Jody, because that's what, I love that coming from that era. So yes, mission accomplished. Well, brother, man, thank you so much for jumping on, from your busy schedule. I know you're out on the West Coast right now. And so tell our friends, Jody, where are you at? Where are you located right now?
Yeah, so I'm in Southern California, but not the fun part. I'm in the desert, which I didn't even know existed until we moved here. So I've been here about 7 years here in my current role. Prior to that was just north of Atlanta in Kennesaw, Georgia. There for about 9. And then prior to that, we were in the Raleigh area there up near Southeastern Seminary, where I went to school and kind of served there for 12. So kind of a bit of a journey. You talk about being at the same place for 25 years. And I tell people all the time that has been my heart.
Yeah.
Everywhere, every step of the way. And, so you're a legend for sure, my friend.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I just, hey, the elders at our church, they knew every time I was going over budget, I had to give an explanation, but then I had to make sure that I also gave a report on how many students gave their life to Jesus. So
of course,
whenever I would go over budget, I would always ask our elders or my pastor, like, hey, are we really going to put a price tag on the soul of a student, someone who's crossed the threshold from death to life? Are you guys going to really put a price tag on that? Now, ladies and gentlemen, that might not work for your boards.
They're like, well, Jeff, we wouldn't put a price tag on it, but this year it seems like it costs $20,000 per student for a kid to come to Christ.
Is a drop in a bucket for a student to spend eternity with Jesus. And so, I'm just saying, what are we talking about here, people?
I love it. Love it.
But, Jody, with your journey of being in student ministry for 2.5+ decades, one of the questions that I get, and I love to hear your perspective of it, is what keeps you so passionate about student ministry? Like, what is the thing for you personally that has kept you there this long?
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of where it started for me, and maybe even before I even realized it was starting. So when I was in high school, I wanted to be an architect. That was my That was my plan. It wasn't really because I even liked architecture. I liked to draw and I wanted to make money. And my uncle convinced me that, hey, this is a great way to do it. And then my senior year of high school, I was taking some drafting classes and my teacher was like, hey, this architecture thing is probably not going to be your thing. Like, you're not good at math. And I mean, you're really bad. And that's pretty important. And the drawing part, you're okay at. But this math thing,
right.
you probably need to reevaluate. And I'm like,
I love that.
Gosh,
That's hilarious.
There was no plan B, And then what happened, really in God's sovereign kindness, which is something I can say today, I couldn't say at the time.
Wow.
My best friend died in a car accident
in
my junior year. And I'd kind of grown up in church, but hadn't really been in church in quite some time. So I know framework for that. And so I spent, it was April of my junior year, I spent kind of that summer really just angry, trying to make sense of it. Like, how could this happen and what's going on? And then coming into my senior year, just had a friend who loved Jesus and loved me enough to be relentless in inviting me into this prayer group that met before school. Now, Jeff, listen, I couldn't get to school on time, let alone be back early. And I certainly didn't want to go early for a prayer group, but she wasn't going to stop asking. And so I said, hey, look, I'll come if you'll stop asking. Okay. That was
was that the rule? Like, hey, you stop asking and I'll come. That
was my rule. I'll come one time. You don't ask me anymore. And so I go, and it's a small high school, East Tennessee, so there's probably 7 or 8 kids in the English classroom there. And so I'm listening to them. They're kind of take this, somebody does a little devotion, and then they just start praying. Pray for the school, pray for me, pray for our teachers. I don't know what happened in that moment.
Wow.
But it's like coming out of a summer of angry, something just changed. I didn't tell anybody, right?
Wow.
But I went back the next day because they met every morning. And so I went back the next day and I wasn't saying much. I was just kind of there.
Yeah.
And this is such a teenager thing. After maybe a couple weeks, they said, hey, Jody, we love that you're coming. But I don't know if you've noticed, everybody's kind of taking a turn doing a small devotion.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to keep coming, you're going to need to do devotion. And I thought, well, I don't want to get kicked out of prayer group. I just got here,
Yeah.
So I agreed to do that. Stayed up all night working on this little devotion that was, from the book of Isaiah. I think I literally just opened my Bible and was like, this one.
There it is, right.
I have no idea what I said. No, it was probably heretical. I have no clue. But I remember in that moment giving that little devotion and feeling like something inside me came alive that I had never experienced. Certainly not doing math and trying to figure out architecture. And so started getting back in church. I kind of had been at that point already. And I remember sitting in my church service and watching my pastor preach and thought, that's it. I want to do that.
Wow.
Now, what came of that was kind of a broader story I talk about in the book, but really that's kind of where my calling began.
Yeah.
Through some conversations, my pastor kind of telling me, hey, run away from this and be sure that this is your thing and that this is the thing. And so then like National Day of Prayer, my senior year, we convinced our principal to let us do a student-led assembly, which I don't even know you can do this now without tons of lawsuits, but we didn't care.
Yeah.
And so we give our testimony, I present the gospel, and I'm watching my classmates give their life to the Lord. And I thought, oh yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I went to Bible college at Southeastern, really thinking I was going to do full-time evangelism because I just loved telling people about Jesus at that point. I get to the end of my freshman year and I don't really want to go home, but I don't have a reason to stay. And I have a friend who says, hey, I know somebody who's looking for somebody to come volunteer with their students for the summer. And I think you should do it. And I didn't want to do it, but I wanted less. I wanted to do that less than going home. So I said, yes.
Yeah.
Small church. We got like 3 or 4 kids. There's 50 people. High attendance day, gospel singing, potluck dinner, and everybody brought a friend. I mean, a very small church. Great space for me. The fact that, they probably weren't going to fire me because no one else was coming, and nobody died. So I felt like that was a plus.
That's always a plus.
Always a plus, And so I think for a long time, Jeff, I would tell people that God really used that to turn my heart towards students. But now I think 25, 26 years looking back, I think from the jump, even back in high school, I thought my heart was just for the lost and for my classmates, but I really think my heart was for teens.
Yeah.
And part of that is when I get to Judges chapter 2, And you see Joshua has died.
Yeah.
And it says, after this arose a generation who did not know the Lord or the things of the Lord. And I just look at that and go, yeah, not on my watch.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm okay with that. I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I just believe that if God's going to do something amazing and start the next generation, I'm pretty driven. I like a challenge. So when I see everyone running away from teenagers, it just makes me want to run toward them.
So good.
And so here I am, kind of still clinging onto that calling and still passionate about seeing this next generation give their lives to Jesus and go and change the world. And I hope they let me hang around and be a part of that.
Jody, I love that, man. That's so, so good. I mean, I didn't want to do architecture. I knew better. I did want to do law. And before the Lord was like, hey, no, I wanted to do corporate law, make a lot of money, live in a loft in downtown Atlanta, and the Lord was like, nope, you're going to be a broke youth pastor, but you're going to have significant impact for the next generation. And I wouldn't change anything except for the pay scale. But that's another conversation.
You get to drive past some of those high rises.
I did. Oh, I did.
There, you got to see them a lot.
I did. But you know this, and we've talked about this before, is that, oftentimes the role of the student minister or student pastor is seen as a stepping stone. It's like kind of the apprenticeship to senior pastor or other quote unquote senior leadership roles. And my, I have thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear, as you have been just on this journey, why do you think, Jody, that, youth ministry positions and student pastor positions more specifically are seen as stepping stone? And do you see some benefits in it? And also, do you see some downfalls in it?
Yeah. So I'll put all my cards on the table. I think if you read the book, you're going to know, okay, Jody wants me to stay in youth ministry for a long time. So I think everybody understands that.
Yeah. All right.
I also would say, though, that youth pastors make really good senior pastors.
My senior pastor was growing up.
Because you've done it all. You've taught probably more than your senior pastor across the year. Because many times, depending on your context, you might be teaching 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
In some places. And so you've taught more consistently.
Mm-hmm.
You've led small groups. Mm-hmm. You've done mission trips. You've done events.
Yeah.
Like you've kind of, there's not really, you've had or somehow had worship as a component.
Yeah.
And then things that you don't even do as a senior pastor. You've probably given some counsel to folks.
Yeah.
Although a different level typically.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think it can kind of prepare you well. I just don't think it has to, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think you could be a senior pastor without being a youth pastor. I think you'd be a great senior pastor without being a youth pastor.
Yeah, true.
And I think if God's called you to be a senior pastor, you should be that.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to be like, oh man, okay, let me go work with the youth for a bit until I figure it out.
Right.
But I do think God calls people through different things in different seasons as well. But I would say that there's great value in staying in youth ministry. Mm-hmm. It gets tough. And so what are some of the reasons? I think God definitely calls people out of student ministry into others. I think pay, you've mentioned that. I mean, it's hard, especially as you get older, your kids are getting older, your families are growing.
Yeah.
And if your pay is still the same pay that you were getting when you got hired, that's really tough to make, to make that work. And so there's some things that have to kind of fall in your favor on that. Now, what I will say is I think many churches are starting to recognize the value of having a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And so because of that, then they're making the investment.
Yes, sir.
Because they're not, I'm seeing, and I'm so encouraged, I'm seeing more of us with some gray, our beards and hairs hanging around than I used to. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that. But, I think there was a push when I was in Bible college. Mm-hmm. If you were young, it wasn't pushing you towards student ministry, it was pushing you towards church planting.
Yep.
I'm not against church planting. I think churches should be planted. Mm-hmm. I also don't think everyone should just go because they don't want to go deal with another church's problems, because you're going to have. So that was kind of the line. Yeah. I don't go to church with problems, go start your own. And I just don't think that worked either. So I think some of those are the reasons that we end up moving out of it. Burnout is a big one.
Mm.
I think you're often over-criticized and underappreciated. If you're not careful, you start believing all the hype and all the criticism, and neither are fair. Just because you get to preach the week after Christmas while your pastor's on vacation and everyone tells you, gosh, I wish you got to preach more. Like, that doesn't mean they love you. It just means they don't hear you often. And so it's different, it's a change, and you might have done a great job and crushed it, but that doesn't mean you're better. It just means you're different. And that's okay as well. So, you start believing your hype, you start thinking you're better than you are. And then you start chasing things that maybe you shouldn't, or you start believing the criticism and you start thinking, man, I'm too old for this. I can't relate anymore. I hate lock-ins. I don't think I could be a youth pastor if I don't like lock-ins. All of these things. I cannot sleep on another foam mattress for another week at camp.
I hate this camp food anymore.
Yeah, gosh, these, the magical camp mattress that gets more comfortable every night isn't as comfortable as it used to be at the end.
Right.
My wife and I counted up a few years ago now. We're like, how many nights have we slept in a bunk bed? Because we started this together, really.
Yeah.
And we stopped it. Once we got over a year, we're like 370 some days. We're like, let's just stop. This is getting embarrassing now.
Yeah, man.
So I think those things play into it. If you're not well prepared, if you're not, you gotta have some people in your corner for sure. But you can't look for the exit ramp either.
Right. That's good, Jody.
Because there's a lot that come. There's a lot are going to come your way. I talk about this a little bit in the book, but I'm convinced that about 2.5 to 3 years in, any context you're in, doesn't matter size of church, denomination of church, ethnic background, geographical location, the wheels are going to fall off that thing.
Yeah, man.
And you can do youth ministry for, I think, about 2 years without Jesus. I think you can play enough games, especially now, because you can buy your stuff online. You can get enough curriculum. You can,
interesting.
Especially if you came through youth group.
Yeah.
You remember at least a couple years worth of games and activities. But after about 2 years, you're kind of out of those things. And now they want to know, okay, what are you going to do? You can't blame the last person, the guy or girl who's before you. Yeah. It's yours. It's your mess. No one's comparing you to them really as much, except for the things they don't like you're doing. And so something is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we could talk through what that was for me. I'm sure I'd be curious to see if it was the same for you. That first church I served in, they ended up merging with another smaller church, and my pastor went to the mission field. They didn't need 2 youth guys, and I was okay at that point to step away. The second church that I jumped in, 2 years in, pastoral change. And then it was a matter of, am I going to quit or get fired first?
Yeah.
But we stayed and saw the fruit of that. I took my first full-time role when I moved to Kennesaw there, north of Atlanta. And a couple of years in, it was a volunteer issue, a big blow up between a couple of volunteers, one of whom was my pastor's wife, and then, we fast forward. I mean, that happens again every 2 or 3 years, but the longer you stay, the easier it is to weather those.
Yeah.
Now I move out here to the left coast, and now I'm out here, and 2.5 years in, COVID. So I don't know why, and it's not always relational, but there's always a challenge that's going to come there. And if you're not prepared for that, you're going to see that come and you go, oof, I think this is my chance to get out.
Yeah.
And you got to bounce. At the very least, you're going to leave and go to another church and start over.
Yeah.
And so, Jeff, you talk to youth pastors all the time like me. You talk to some of these youth pastors, youth ministers, and if this is you, listen, I'm not trying to shame you in this. I'm just trying to point this out that you talk to them and they're like, I've got 10 years of youth ministry experience. But when you start talking, it's really just 2 over and over and over. And what I want to tell folks is man, you will grow more from year 3 to year 5 than you will probably in the entirety of your ministry, because it's a different skill set that gets you from 3 to 5.
Yeah.
And if you can learn that skill set coupled with what it took to survive the first couple of years, you're set up pretty well.
Yeah.
To continue.
There is so much there in what you just said, because I think for me, I agree. And I agree with you. I want to affirm. Yeah, that 2-year window is kind of the honeymoon stage, where you're getting to know the students, especially if they're coming out of having someone who was really just not a great leader. It was bad. You're just a breath of fresh air. Right. And so you're developing some relational equity there, but it is now how to maintain it and and how do you handle the different seasons of student ministry which you're going to have? Because for me, I was a person who early on I'm a big milestone person. Let me say that. I always wanted milestone. Like, what does a sixth grader who's a fully devoted follower look like? What is a seventh, eighth, ninth, on through? And then also, I wanted to see what is a sixth grader. How can I see them assimilate through my ministry? By the time they get to 12th grade. Like, so for me, early on, there were certain markers that I just wanted to hit that kind of kept me focused on the long game. But to your point, Jody, I do agree. I think that, when you hit that tension point, and man, I'm sure we could spend multiple podcasts about all the mistakes or the challenges, man. I'll never forget one, which, I'll share. I remember my first big thing and it was funny. It was kind of year 4-ish, 3, 4. We had a leader on one of our spring break trips. One of my chaperones and youth leaders bought alcohol for a student. Yeah. Because, they were trying to be hip and relevant. And, my church was in the inner city, Atlanta, and an area called Decatur. And so, I was one who was really trying to get students outside of their zip code to experience different things. We came down here to Florida. It was to Orlando. It was the last day we were packing up, and I was debriefing with some leaders, and one of my students came back and it was like, "Hey, Pastor Jeff, you might want to come upstairs. Some students have been drinking, and, we had a couple students that were intoxicated." So I get up there, Jody, man, and I just kick down the door like the Terminator, man.
Yeah, you did. I can't turn these receipts in.
Yeah. Dude, I go off and didn't really ask any question about where it came from or anything. I said, everybody loaded. We had a charter bus. I said, everybody, we're loading up. We're not staying out. We're driving through the night. And so I loaded up everybody. I said, man, I don't want to hear y'all breathe for 6 hours. You know what I mean? Like, so angry. And so I called my pastor, let him know what happened. I said, hey, I called one of my leaders that was still home, my administrator. And I said, I need you to get all the parents. We're coming in early, make sure they're there because I want to have a meeting with them. And so we're in our fellowship hall, get all the parents around. I express how disappointed I am. And you always have that one kid who is just that kid in your youth group who always know the right moment to just pull the grenade. I pulled out the grenade and throw it in.
Yeah, of course.
So my student, Jeremy, I'll never forget, he's doing very well right now.
I bet he is.
Yeah, he's doing some acting and stuff in Hollywood, and so he's a funny dude. But anyway, he raised his hand, and I saw him, and he was one of the ones that were, that was intoxicated, and he was raised. I said, Jared, I don't really want to talk to you. And mind you, Jody, I'm a young leader, man. I'm in my mid-20s. And I said, I think you've done enough, and you talk to your parents about it. So he just kept raising hands. So I was like, Jeremy, what do you have to say? I mean, are you about to apologize? And so he says, Jeff, you never asked us where we got the alcohol from. And I was like, Jeremy, I really don't care. If you brought it or whatever, that's a mute point. And he just kept acting out. Mind you, bro, we are in a fellowship hall with my pastor, some of our deacons, parents, everybody. And he says, you might want to ask us where we got the alcohol from. And I said, fine, Jeremy. I mean, I don't know if you can make it any worse for yourself than what you already done. And I said, so tell me, where did you get the alcohol from? He looks over at one of my leaders and he says, tell him where we got the alcohol from. And my leader just dropped his head. And man, you could hear a pin drop in the room.
You're like, that's it. I'm fired.
Yeah, that's
it's been great.
Yeah, it's great. And I just, so at that moment, man, the only thing I knew to do was like, parents, I want to apologize. Obviously, there's a lot more to the situation that I was not aware of. But, I'm still disappointed, and you have my word that we'll get to the bottom of it. So everybody and I'm just thinking to myself, Jody, okay, what can I do next? Because I know I'm about to get fired. And And so my pastor, I love the little, hey, let me talk to you first.
Yeah, come on over here for a second. I got something to tell you. Yeah.
So we come in his office and he says, obviously, by your response, you did not know that. And I said, no, sir, I didn't. And he says, but at first I love my pastor always ask the question.
Yeah.
We always ask reflective questions.
Yeah.
What have you learned from this?
Yeah.
What would you do different? And I said, well, pastor, I said, I learned number one, not to assume. I said, two, not to be very reactionary. I said, because I didn't ask any questions. I just bowled us up. I was so angry. I did not step back, be a leader, get to a bottom, get the whole story so that I could be better prepared for this moment. And then I said, and then the second thing I learned is, or third, I've had another number I was on, but I was like, the assumption of training. I said, Pastor, obviously, I didn't think I would have to end my staff training with my leaders, my volunteers, like write or put in there, do not give alcohol to minors. I just assumed you knew.
You would think like the law would be enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, so, it changed the way I did training. I mean, that moment impacted my ministry so much. Now, to your point of honeymoon stage being over, at that moment, the honeymoon stage was done.
It was done.
It was done. Like the credibility that I had went from 100 down to maybe 20.
Yeah, you went from likable to can I trust Jeff?
Exactly.
And that is a very different question.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it, for me, was a defining moment because I had two choices, either flight or fight. Either I can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to bow out gracefully, go somewhere else and be the hero for the next, like you said, 2 years or so or whatever. Or I could redefine my failures as lessons and now I can pick up the pieces and kind of track and move forward. And it, for me, was the moment that I can look back in my ministry and I could say, okay, it was a season of rough. We had the ministry went in a decline. And man, I just rolled up my sleeve and I just made a commitment. Lord, if this is where you have me to be, then give me the leadership that I need to be able to push through this moment. And man, there's a lot of things that, went on with that, obviously. And there were even some legal things I learned because I had to walk through now with that volunteer and member or chaperone. We had to deal with all that. So I learned so much. But it was that moment that many, 20 years plus later would say, I had several parents who came to me and said, I watched you handle that with such grace, godly character, and integrity. And it was that I wasn't sure. And they made them say, I wasn't sure how that was going to end up. But that failure and my commitment to dealing with it head on became the greatest leadership moment for me because we went from here to up here and we never look back.
That's so good.
We never look back. And I think, one of the dangers of the two and out, is that you never get an opportunity to fail forward. You never get an opportunity to really develop leadership grit, get really depth of understanding how to minister in the midst of seasons. And I personally believe, this is just a personal opinion of mine, I think that some of the greatest youth pastors and student pastors and leaders have been one who have weathered the 4 seasons of ministry. Like they've stayed through the 4 seasons. I've just gone through it all and then push repeat on that. Like, how do you continue to put a fresh coat of paint on there? How do you not be redundant? How do you recognize the evolution of what culture and society is, which is matched with your steady strategy of assimilation, for your student ministry? What I mean? How do you navigate that? Because in that, I went through seasons where we had students who were very missional, to had seasons that I had a lot of athletes. And I had seasons where I had a lot more girls than I did guys and vice versa. And so there was so many different things and iterations of our student ministry that I think really helped me even into what I'm doing today to be a better leader because of the fact that, man, I learned how to redefine my failures lessons. So to your point, man, I think you're spot on, Jody, when you talk about the danger of, being 2 year of being that. And so, man, I could talk about that forever, but
Yeah.
for you, Jody, like when did you have like a moment like that, or not to you have somebody but alcohol experience, but was there something where you was like a defining moment for you where it was like, okay, in any, whether it's Kennesaw or in California or whatnot, where you're like, okay, this is a defining moment for me and I'm either going to tap out or I'm gonna push forward?
I mean, there's been lots, right? I mean, every you leave a Wednesday night, stop at Taco Bell on your way home late, and you're like daydreaming about what it would be to make tacos. I'm like, that's got to be a nice job. Open late, Baja Blast on tap, tuition reimbursement, benefits. That's what the sign said. I don't even get that at my church,
Right.
So there's a lot. Jeff, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't want to.
No,
how long was your pastor there when that moment happened? How long had he been at that church?
Well, my pastor, it was a unique situation. So my pastor was my youth pastor growing up.
Okay.
We started our church my senior year in high school with 14 families. And I went, I was doing the law deal. The Lord called me my end of my sophomore year, junior year in college, came back, started. So that's 4 years there. Got married. I'd probably, at this point, our church was probably around 8 years old.
And he was their guy.
He was.
Because I think sometimes, we talk about why, sometimes it's beyond your control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there are pastors in that situation who maybe don't have the time in and the trust themselves.
Yeah.
Who you just become the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, very
so
true.
they don't allow you to grow through that moment.
That is very true.
Because they just want to be done with it and move on. So kudos for your pastor on that. Because I've been in plenty of situations and heard of and coached and counseled youth pastors who are like in a situation where things don't go well. And some of it was their doing, some of it was not. But they don't have, the leadership doesn't have the patience to help them learn and grow through it. They just want to move on.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I would say to that, Jody, I think our church experienced tremendous fruit because my pastor was so patient with me.
Yeah.
Because I believe that the health, depth, and longevity of every church strongly depends on the strength of its student ministry. And so as our student ministry grew, you had young families coming in. I was very much known in Decatur as the campus ministry guy. I was on campuses and doing a lot of things. And so families would come because their students were involved in the student ministry, and our church erupted from that. And also, again, my pastor chose to be two things. He chose to be my pastor and leader, but he also chose to be my discipler, like a mentor and walking alongside me. And I recognize, because same as you, Jody, I've talked to countless guys and ladies who've not had that benefit of having a pastor who's willing to be pastor and leader, but also discipler and mentor. And so, so I hope, because we have senior pastors who are listening to our podcast as well, I hope that would be also an encouragement, pastor, to be patient with some of these leaders, especially young student ministry leaders who are coming in. Now, there are certain things that if it's a moral or something else, it was obvious, because I was so upset. And my pastor, if you would ask him now, he did, later on after he let me sweat through it all, he said what was easier for him to go to bat for me was that it was obvious that I didn't know, and I was really bothered and upset by it. And that
it's good.
Students drinking alcohol or something was not okay with me, and I took it very serious. And students doing anything outside of godly character and everything was not okay with me. And my intensity. Now you say, no, you definitely didn't handle it right. but that was one of the things that he looked for. So for senior pastors that are listening, I would encourage you to step back from a situation, fully assess it. And it is something that you can train this youth leader up before you try to trade them out, or to take the fall.
Yeah, it's good. And I don't want to speak for you, Jeff, but what I think I hear you saying too is, if for those listening who maybe don't have a mentor, disciple, and a pastor, which, let's be honest, some just can't. They're busy, right? So sometimes that's an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So I think I heard you say two things there. One, look outside. If you need to look outside of your current leadership to find somebody who can invest in you. And two, if no one's asking, what did you learn from this? You need to be able to ask yourself that question. So not get defensive right away, because that's our nature. It's like we just want to buck up and defend and go all in and be defensive when confronted in that moment. But to have the posture and humility of okay, no, how can I learn from this? And honestly, you may not be able to stay at that church.
Yeah.
And if you don't, let's grieve the loss of that and mourn that. But let's go into the next having learned something so that when a situation comes up again, now you know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I think too often we're just ready to point the finger and blame others, like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
And really, often it's you're either growing forward. You're never failing. You're either growing or you're learning.
Fair. Yeah, that's great.
And so if you're not doing anything, maybe you're not, but that would be failing. But I think otherwise, we need to see all of our failures as opportunities for growth and learning.
Yes.
And some of the greatest lessons in ministry will come through the most heartbreaking failure. Heartbreaking failures.
Yeah.
And so I think we all have moments we look back and go, oh gosh, man, I'm glad I was a youth pastor for Instagram.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Everything I did in high school was a rumor, and I'm glad, right? And that's some of the pressure. That's some of the pressure these kids face today. Yeah. It's why I want to, again, we go back to where we started. It's why I want to stand in the gap for these kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's unfair what we've given them. We've given them instant access to information with zero wisdom to navigate it. That's why I think longevity matters, because I'm in my mid 40s, right? I was never cool, let's be honest, but I'm certainly not now. Yeah. I don't relate the same way as I did when I was 18 and a youth pastor. Jeff, we did 6 lock-ins my first year. It's the only thing I knew how to do, and I loved them. And I was now in charge with, a few $100 of a budget. Yeah. You couldn't pay me to do a lock-in right now. I relate differently, but I have life lived that now I don't have to know all the trends. It's helpful to be aware of them. I don't have to know them all. Yeah. I can ask, what is that? Hey, what does that word mean? When you say that, what are you listening to? Those now begin and they help me move into conversation. Yeah. Because there's no assumption. Yeah. And so now you talk about, youth pastors and youth ministers who want a senior pastor to be a mentor, an older, wiser leader. I think our students want that too. Yeah. So even if you're listening and you're 22, 23, 24, and you may relate to them on a different level than someone older. Yeah. Just because you don't have time in doesn't mean you can't be effective either. It just means you need to recognize you have a lot more to learn. Yeah. And in my 20s, I was like you, Jeff. Bro, I was running around with I didn't have hair. I was already bald, but I was running around with my head on fire. I remember, so I got married young, 18. Same. I met my wife my freshman year. I got married when I was almost 20. She turned 20. So I turned 20 a month later. We had our first kid at 22. So by the time I hit 30, I had been married for 10, 11 years and had 4 kids. That was longer than most of my parents who were in my ministry. They were older than me. But even at 29 with 4 kids being married that long, I was still a kid in their eyes. I woke up the day later, 30, and suddenly I was an adult. And I felt like for the first time, and I remember feeling that shift. Like it was weird. But I remember feeling that shift in parent meetings. And I'd been at that church. It wasn't like I was stepping in a new space. But I felt like, okay, in my 20s, I was just running. Yeah. Running, man. I was ready and I had all the energy I needed. and I was just running, and I knew everything. I knew better. Parents were the problem. I needed them to get out of my way.
Yep.
I hit my 30s. I think I really started figuring out who I was. Okay, I kind of know my strengths, weaknesses. I'm kind of leaning into more of this. I've got a little more confidence. I hit my 40s, and now I'm questioning everything. Now I'm having this, man, can I do this? Is this? And so you talk about jumping off points. I mean, there's multiple as you age through ministry.
Yeah.
But again, what I've seen over that time is there's value in, like, I love walking into a room of parents now.
Yeah.
I can crush a parent meeting.
Yeah.
It's my favorite meeting.
Yeah.
I love hanging out, investing in our volunteers.
Yeah.
I love it. I could do it all day. While I hang out with teenagers, yeah, I still will. I love those guys.
Yeah.
But when in my 20s, if I walked into a room of parents and students, I'm going to students and I'm not talking to the parents.
Yeah.
If I walk into that same room today, I'm going to the parents.
Yeah.
That's where I'm starting.
Yeah.
And I'll make my way to the students.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. You've really teased it I think in a great way, Jody, but let's talk about the book now, because as we're talking, you and I, obviously are, which it sounds weird to even say this, like ministry vets, you've been.
Yeah. Well, that means we're old.
Yeah, exactly. But which I think I know, but I'd love to ask. But one, what compelled you to write this book, Stay in Power, and who do you think will really benefit from it?
Yeah, so I started the longer haul. I was still a bivocational youth pastor. I saw all of my friends who were full-time bouncing from church to church like we've talked about.
Yeah.
And I had been in the same spot as a bivocational guy now for a good season.
Yeah.
I was a bivocational first 11 years of my ministry.
Yeah.
And I was just seeing fruit and joy in that others of my friends weren't. And it wasn't even about full-time bivocational. It was just, I say bivocational. I was working 10 hours. I was getting paid 10 hours a week at the church to work a full-time job and 4 others, like whatever it takes. And I just wanted to encourage folks to stay. I was at a Simply Youth Ministry conference, and I went to a breakout on writing, actually. And this was a long time ago.
Yeah, man.
And came out of that and thought, I think I could do something like that. So the longerhaul.com started as a blog, and I was writing to 18-year-old me. What did I wish I knew when I was 18? After a few years of that kind of, I wanted to say more than I could write. So that turned into the podcast.
Okay.
It became the Longer Haul Youth Ministry podcast. And that has been going on now for a long time. Yeah. But then it kind of comes full circle and you're like, I think I want to say more than I can say in a podcast now. Certainly more than in a blog. And so it was just this idea of, after how many countless conversations with other youth pastors and youth ministers who are striving and longing for longevity, like, what are the things that really move the needle?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are the essential things that really have to be present for you to stay in this thing for a long time? So I kind of boiled that down to 10 essentials, which is what's in the book.
Yep.
And those 10 essentials, I think, are the power that kind of result in staying. And so kind of walk through the progression is intentional. The first kind of section, which is the majority of the book, is really you personally. Right? Then there's some pragmatic sections, and then there's some little more philosophical things in the end. And then for those listening, to be totally fair and transparent, if you've never looked at the book, I also don't want you to feel guilty. Like, if you're sitting here going, I don't think I should stay, we're not trying to guilt you into that. So in the appendix of the book, contrary to popular belief, so the last chapter is called The Chapter No One Will Read and Everyone Should. And then following that chapter are 7 reasons you should leave.
Wow.
And the reason that's there is because I do think there are times when you need to leave. And so I've not really heard anybody talk about it. So let's give you some handles. If you make it through the book and you're like, I still don't know, then evaluate. Here's 7 things to consider.
Yeah.
Is it time to go? Because sometimes it is. I just hope that's not your first instinct.
That's good, man. That's so good. And I appreciate that, because I do think that it's important that you're prayerful and discerning on, whether this is a season end, or if it's just a hard season and you're trying to quit. and take
Right.
the way out. Because when you are, very prayerful and asking God to give you some discernment, he will tell you, hey, no, the season isn't over. It's just hard. And I think that, we have to be careful. I think, one of the things that I have seen over the recent years is a lot of student pastors and leaders running from hard,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
or they've redefined what hard is, you know what I mean? And now you and I, you talk about, man, you dropped a conference that was really one of my first ones to work on.
That's where we first met, by the way. You don't remember, I'm sure, because I was like a little peon, youth pastor for no budget. I paid for my own way there, and you're the main stage guy.
Oh my gosh, here you go. But yeah,
that conference was life-changing for me.
Yeah, and we were. It was a different, and I'm not trying to compare quote unquote eras or times, but I think that there was this idea of like, man, you got to have some grit. There has to be this staying power. There, void of toxicity. Now we're not talking about if there's something toxic. If there is it's very, very clear. I mean, you have, some handles and principles in the back of the book that talk about here's, a metrics, a mark of knowing, hey, now it's time to tap out. But I think that that's what I'm seeing today is that there really isn't a true understanding between what is hard versus the season has come to an end. So from that part, Jody, I really appreciate you even putting that in the book, even against popular belief, because I do think that is a question that I get a lot of times is when do I know?
Yeah, I'm done. When should I be done? Well, Jeff, I think it comes down, longevity really comes down to two things. Mm-hmm. Okay. Not quitting and not getting fired. Really. If we said, what does it mean? How do you experience longevity? I would say, okay, if you really want to have longevity in ministry, don't quit. Don't get fired.
Yeah.
Now, that's hard to write a book about those two things, Yeah. So I think what I would say is my hope would be whether you're just starting out early in this thing or you're like us, you've been doing this a really long time and you need to be reminded of it.
Yeah.
That these 10 essentials will keep you from quitting and getting fired. Right. And that's the hope.
Yeah.
Because to your point, I don't know, man, like the era that we started in this thing was such an interesting season in student ministry, because on the one hand, it was pizza parties and dodgeball and chubby bunny. To some extent, we were giving them a whole lot of fun and some Jesus sprinkled in, right?
Right.
Just shout to the Lord and Lord, I lift your name on high. Everything had hand motions.
Yes.
That was it, right?
Yes.
It was in that sense, it was pretty easy to be a youth pastor.
Yeah. It was.
I remember the very first student that I counseled with an eating disorder. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not making light of eating disorders, but if I have a student, a parent who comes into my office with an eating disorder, I'm like, oh, thank God it's just an eating disorder. Let's get ahead of this.
That is so true, brother.
Right. And so there was that, but there was, to your point, this idea that we are never leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was this rebellious almost, and maybe not the healthiest, but born out of this rebellion. Like we are youth pastors and youth ministers and we will never give up.
Yeah.
And so throw your best at me. Yeah. I'm just going to run harder at this generation. And so I think we've lost some of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the culture shift. I don't know if that's, we haven't talked as much about calling over probably the last decade, more so recently again. I can't, I think the calling is just this inescapable thing. What does it mean? And and here's the hard part, Jeff. And even recently I found myself in a season like this where you sit and you say, okay, God, I know you've called me to this. Like I'm confident in that.
Yeah.
And I know I'm yours.
Yeah.
And I know your word says you are good.
Mm-hmm.
But it does not feel like it right now.
Yeah.
And it has not for a while.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to choose to allow my head to steer my heart. So I'm going to believe that. I'm going to believe my calling. I'm going to believe my salvation. I'm going to believe in your goodness, even though right now nothing in my life seems to indicate that. And there's going to be moments where it feels like that. You walk out of, look, you stay in this long enough, you're going to have a student who takes their life. You walk out of that
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's a long ride home.
Yeah, man.
That's a long ride home.
Yeah.
And there you're going to have tragedy across the board, car accidents and those things. Those are long rides home. But listen, those are moments.
Yeah.
You're going to have, you stay in this long enough, you're going to have months, sometimes years,
Yes.
where it's just hard.
Hard.
I mean, hard.
Yeah.
No one seems to understand. No one's coming. No one wants to volunteer. Overly critical.
Yeah.
Leadership that doesn't understand. You know, you're watching this generation struggle to find truth. And you want so desperately for them to understand what it means to go all in on Jesus and put their yes on the table.
Yeah.
Nothing is happening.
Oh, good, man. Oh.
Nothing. You are the prophet Jeremiah, right? Like no one is saying yes.
Yeah.
It's just you. So what do? You know, do you give up and take something easier? Do you go back on this calling you felt so confident of? Do you move and walk away from this faith and this gracious kindness that God has shown you?
Yeah.
Those are defining moments. And Jeff, you could say the same. They will come when you least expect it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is like you think you finally got it and figured it out, or things are turning my way. And then you just wake up one day and all of a sudden everything has changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you have to decide. That's big boys and big girls in ministry right there.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's so good. You know, Jody, as we come to the close of this conversation, man, it's so good. You said a couple of things that just took me to a place where I just thought about moments in my ministry of tragedy, hard, having to, those long drives, not only just home, but long drives to a parent's house to tell them, because I'm the first one to find out that their child is no longer with us, and
they don't teach you that in Bible college.
They do not teach you that in Bible college, because I didn't have a script and I didn't know. But one of the things that I think is so important, that as those who are listening, those who are watching, and those who are in the moment, I want to encourage to definitely buy this book. I think it's important that, there has to be, if you're going to have longevity, I want to add to one. You said, don't get fired, don't quit, but then also make sure your posture is always total surrender and dependence on the goodness of the Lord. I think when we start thinking that the success of the student ministry is on us, then it becomes personality driven instead of a ministry that's been given to God and touched by God. And I think it is important that this isn't our ministry, it's the Lord's, and that we give that to Him and we surrender our will and our way and our desires, our hopes, our dreams. We give it all to the Lord and we say, God, whatever you want it to be, I just want to follow, I want to follow the wind,
Yeah.
And that's so important. And so for all of you who are listening, man, I hope and pray, number one, that you won't quit. You won't quit and you won't run from hard. Number two, that you'll do everything that you can to ensure, to the best of your ability, that you're not positioning yourself to get fired. But then number three, which really probably should be number one for us, is that every day you wake up in the morning, your prayer should be twofold. Number one, Lord, thank you for letting me see a day in which I've never seen before. Or then number two, on this day, God, give me your daily bread. I want your fresh man. I want you to lead, guide, and direct my path so I can be the leader that you're calling me to be for this generation. And then finally, last thing, man, I think it's important that as leaders, you're resourcing yourself, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with my brother, Jody, because I think that this project and this resource is a must read. It's a must read. And so, Jody, if you don't mind, brother, how can leaders get this resource in their hand? Where can they get it?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to thelongerhaul.com, find everything there. It's on Lifeway, obviously, it's a Lifeway resource. So you can go to Lifeway, it's on Amazon. So wherever folks run to normally to find it. I just want to say this, Jeff, it's worth it. Not the book.
Yes, sir.
Staying in ministry is worth it. I mean, I think the book is worth it too.
It is.
But
but
like with all the hard that comes your way, and there will be days you wake up and you don't want to pray. There'll be days you don't want to be in the Word.
Absolutely.
There are going to be days where this is worth it. And the students that sit in front of you, man, they're worth it.
Yeah, man.
And they're counting on you.
Yeah, man.
They're counting on you. So my hope is that the book does help you stay.
Yeah.
My short book, I wrote it short on purpose. It's essentials. I wanted to make sure a youth pastor could read it. I hope it's not just helpful, but it's, if you don't like the book, you're not gonna like me. It's me. I mean, there's some things, and I try to keep it light where I can and funny, but not. There's some serious things. And Jeff, we didn't even mention the cover has an elephant on it.
Yes. Oh, look, you know what?
I feel like
yes, I missed that. Yes, it is
hurting it.
That is why
although he's not running, you're not having to chase him. He ain't moving.
He ain't moving.
He ain't moving.
While we at the Chasing Elephants podcast totally endorse this project, because not only is it great content on the inside, but it's a masterful cover right there on the outside of it. And so that's good. Hey, Jody, how can people follow you or stay connected to you? I know you have the long youth excuse me, but how can people stay connected to you? And if people want to, say, man, I need to talk to you, or may bring you in training.
Yeah, thelongerhaul.com is kind of your one-stop shop. Everything. The podcast is there. You can contact me through that. There's some blog stuff there as well, books, resources, coaching, all that stuff can be found there. That's probably the easiest space to go. Just thelongerhaul.com.
Perfect. Well, Jody, thank you so much, man, for just taking time out of your schedule, brother, to hang out with our Chasing Elephant podcast. On this podcast, I didn't tell you this in front, and I guess I should have, but you got not only just students who have been a part of the SLU journey, but you have youth pastors, youth leaders, educators, volunteers, lead pastors that are part of our Chasing Elephants tribe. And so I know that all of them will be equally grateful for this conversation and definitely interested in this resource. And so thank you, man, for taking time to hang out with us. And ladies and gentlemen, that is our time today. But as always, we would love for you to continue to follow us at SLU Lead. That's at SLU Lead. Follow me at I am Jeff Wallace, and Brent at Brent A. Crow. And make sure that as you are subscribing to this podcast, that you always do those fun little marketing things. You share, you like, let other people know about it, all that stuff. But definitely get this conversation in the hands of everyone that you know. And as always, man, make sure you're being very intentional every day of your life on trying to be the best version of yourself. Until next time, my friends, God bless you, and we'll see you. Take care.